Martha was not sleeping at all, Tatlock noted. She had horrible insomnia. She sometimes would barge into my room in the middle of the night to confront me about one thing or another. That is when I would leave. Don't you dare barge into my room in the middle of the night to talk about your problems. We gotta get some sleep around here. On one such occasion, a highly emotional Martha demanded that Tatlock attend a pre-dawn screening of decades-old photographic slides that she had found among Andy's possessions. What the hell, Martha? I was asleep. But you want to go look at some slides you found of Andy's? She flipped the covers off of me and said, I have to show you something. She was frantic. She'd already set up the slide projector in her office, which was adjacent to my bedroom, and she wanted to show me slides of Andy as a teenager with his girlfriends at the time. What? What? How is this relevant to Kathy Tatlock? How is this relevant to anyone? I was dead asleep, Martha. I don't want to look at slides of Andy's girlfriends. I don't want to go down to Crazy Town with you. Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise. We're going to keep going in the Martha Stewart book today. Last time we read, Andy had finally got the gumption to leave. He was done. He was sick of it. Finally, he was like, I don't think so. And this is really gonna burn Martha's biscuits because Andy is not supposed to do anything she didn't tell him to do. So for him to finally get the gumption to leave is beyond her wildest imagination. She thought she had that guy in a chokehold and he was never going to leave. And for some reason she seems to have had this delusion that they were like real good friends. I think that because he did everything she said, she just assumed he must be happy doing it because she wasn't going to do something she didn't want to do. So since he was doing it, I think that she just assumed, like, we're good, right? Now, she couldn't have possibly thought they were good. He was constantly trying to get her into therapy. He was constantly saying, I'm unhappy, but somehow that didn't ring true to her. So he finally leaves and she's shattered, but she's shattered for a couple of reasons. One, who wants to have a failed marriage? But she had a deal with Kmart that was sort of incumbent upon the fact that she have the happy home in reality because she was selling happy home to the masses. So it's kind of awkward if you're getting a divorce and everything's a mess at your house, but you're trying to sell this lifestyle brand. Like, who wants to have your life? Not me. That was kind of the fear the Kmart people were having. But even bigger than that was the fact that she was having a book come out called Weddings, the celebration of marriage, and her own marriage is crumbling. So stuff started to leak that she and Andy were getting a divorce. Somebody had dropped a line at a tabloid, and so word was coming out. He ended the last episode with Martha coming out and saying, I have a very happy marriage. We were very happily married. Of course, she's going to deflect and say everything's great because she's got, multiple big deals on, both of the front burners. She can't have her marriage crumbling in the background. So that's where we ended off last time. This chapter is entitled Getting Even. Lord, what's that going to be about? Now, Getting Even begins by saying what really shocked Martha about Andy's departure was that for the first time in their marriage, he was in complete control. He had had the last word. As a result, she required constant attention and reinforcement from her friends. After Andy left, she was calling me every day, said Jana Horowitz. If it wasn't once a day, it was 2 or 3 times a day. I was a crutch, and she needed to talk, and it was getting very heavy for me. It was so upsetting. She was very needy, very vulnerable, and that was the worst time for her. It was a real shock to her that he had left. It was a shock, because she wasn't in control anymore. She made comments like, how could he do this at this time? She was shocked that she didn't have a say in it. It was a control issue. Now, let me just remind you that Horowitz is a neighbor. Janet Horowitz was one of their neighbors. Janet, I believe, was a psychiatrist as her profession. And when she looked at Martha in the past, she said that Martha was like a very interesting person. She admired her drive and everything, but she was put off by the way Martha treated Andy, but specifically she was put off by the way Martha treated Lexi. And Janet had a daughter who often played with Lexi, but Lexi wasn't very nice to her daughter. But then more of a concern for Janet was the way Martha treated the kids. They were never really allowed to play. It was always like, go do this chore, go do that chore. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. Martha seemed very uncomfortable with kids just being. They always had to be doing something in order to sort of like earn the right to be loved. I mean, it was very weird, and Janet was uncomfortable with that. So we've heard from Janet before. Eventually, the Horowitzes are going to side pretty strongly with Andy and cut Martha out, but that's not till later. Anyway, Horowitz had become aware of the bizarre incident in which Martha had confronted Andy and had torn a patch of hair out of her scalp. That frightful act, Horowitz believed, underscored the rage Martha was feeling at the same time and continued to feel for a long time to come. Martha's need to control was so dominating that she would do almost anything to get what she wanted, and she wanted Andy back. I think she felt, if he sees how badly I'm suffering, he'll come back. She was desperate at that point. Her reaction to Andy's cancer some years earlier wasn't as extreme as when Andy left her. That was the most emotional I had ever seen Martha. But Horowitz and other friends thought that Andy was long past the point of showing any sympathy for Martha. He'd been thinking of leaving for many, many years, she affirmed. My feeling was that he finally left for health reasons. He was having constant bodily problems that were related to the stress of the marriage. His back was so bad that they were going to operate. He was miserable. He was dying in that relationship. Yeah, I think Andy really internalized a lot of the things that were happening. I mean, we saw that when he got sick with cancer. And a lot of his friends thought that it was stress-induced. Who knows? I mean, people get cancer for all sorts of different reasons. But for somebody who never answered back to her, there never seemed to be any release for his feelings. It seemed like it was all the stress turning back in on him. And you couldn't be a healthy person if you're that emotionally distressed all the time. Aside from the loss of control, Martha was infuriated by the timing of Andy's departure during her book tour. It was the worst, she acknowledged several years later. It was a very horrible thing. It's very hard to feel nice about a person after he does something like that, knowing that that's exactly what you're on, the book promotion tour, with his picture in the wedding book. He got me where it hurt the most, paying me back for whatever I did to him all those years that made him be so mean to me. Delusion at its highest order, Martha. I just don't know why he would do this. Why was he being so mean to me? All I'd ever done was love him. And then for some reason he's paying me back for something I don't even know that I did. Martha had put together a collection of her own personality traits that she believed had sparked Andy's decision to leave. He thought I was this very selfish person, she said. I think that was a total misunderstanding of me, because I think I'm personally very unselfish, and yet that was one of his complaints. I'm sure he was tired of helping me. He helped me a lot. I admit it. I helped him a lot also, and he forgets that. Well, I did a lot. I think he got tired of my drive and my desire to do lots of things. Martha, what is this? Martha, Andy's right. She had zero ability to see who she was as a person. I'm the most unselfish person. Somebody who's this controlling, this selfish, this them-centered would usually be able to admit that they were selfish. The thing would just be that they didn't feel bad about it. That their selfishness had gotten the family so much, how could you act like that was the wrong character trait? But she doesn't even admit that she's selfish. That is really a shock to me. That she could be so close-minded about all of her worst traits that she would say that she was not selfish. She doesn't even try to put a positive spin on the selfishness, which would at least be understandable. She denies its very existence. That is delusion on a level I have never even conceived of. All right, well, in the days and weeks after Andy left, Martha bounced between one extreme mood and another. In the hopes of winning him back, she first tried the attention and sympathy-getting act of pulling out a patch of her hair, which only served to frighten and alienate Andy even more. When that didn't work, she tried to be nice to him. A couple of weeks after he had fled, she invited him back to Turkey Hill Easter party attended by friends and Kostara family members. To the surprise of many, Andy accepted. But he had no intention of staying. His only reason was to remain friends with Martha and especially Lexi. Andy made several visits through the spring and summer during which Martha was on her best behavior. On one occasion, he specifically returned home to make a cameo appearance playing the daddy in the buffet party for family and friends, one of the episodes in the 3-part Martha Stewart's Secrets of Entertaining series. Martha went back and forth between trying to cajole and seduce Andy by making it more attractive for him to come back, observed Tatlock, who, at Martha's urging, had moved temporarily into the little apartment above the garage because Martha wanted her closer to the ongoing production. At the same time, Martha required the shoulder of an old and loyal friend to lean on as her emotional state worsened. Tatlock, who witnessed and experienced many of the weird goings-on at Turkey Hill during that period, described as bizarre Andy's decision to appear in the Secrets of Entertaining buffet sequence at a time when he was trying to escape from Martha. When she questioned him about it, Andy threw up his hands. I don't know how I could have tolerated Martha's behavior and then come back and done her bidding, he told her. But that just speaks to the kind of power that she has. But every effort that Martha made to lure Andy back permanently failed miserably, and by September he had stopped his visits to Turkey Hill. At that point, a furious and distraught Martha began a campaign of harassment against Andy that started slowly but intensified when he actually filed for divorce, and after she learned that he had become romantically involved with Robin Fairclough. You'll remember that Robin worked for Martha, and I think at a time had even lived on the property. She did a lot of different things for Martha, but she specifically worked on flower arrangements for all of her different sets. But Martha, if you'll recall, had been forcing Andy into Robin's arms all the time. Like when Andy was around and, Martha thought that he was annoying her, she would say, go talk to Robin. Just get out of my way, go talk to Robin. And she was always telling people that Andy and Robin would make a great couple. And then when they, took her up on her advice, she's like, how dare they? Wasn't this your idea, Martha? It's almost like Martha was baiting him to have an affair so she could be angry about it. Anyway, when Martha realized she couldn't win Andy back, that's when the vitriol began, Tatlock noted. Martha was very angry. She felt very betrayed. She felt that she had really helped Andy through that whole period of his cancer. She said that she was instrumental in nursing him back to health, and that he had repaid her by cheating on her. She told me that when she was a stockbroker, there were opportunities to have dalliances, but she said that she had remained faithful. That's her story now, but that's not even what she told Andy, so whatever, Martha. According to a number of the Stewart's friends, Claire McCulley being one of them, Martha began stalking Andy not long after he left her. Andy visited us quite often that first fall, and strange things were happening, she asserted. Andy suspected Martha was having him tailed. His mailbox in New York was broken into. He constantly had to change his telephone number because even though it was private, she'd get it and call him. He'd call us with a new number and say, don't write it down, memorize it and swallow it. He was out of town meeting with another publisher, and she called his office and told his secretary that something terrible had happened to Lexi. So Andy called Martha, who must have had the call traced because the next thing we knew, she was on the phone to us, and we hadn't heard from her for months. In the course of the conversation, she asked whether we'd seen Andy. George lied and said, no, how's he doing? And then she didn't want to talk to us anymore. She said, well, have a nice day, and hung up. Of course, nothing was wrong with Lexi. Martha was just playing one of her games. She has those sadistic, crazed ways. I don't totally understand that story, but Andy was away, and then she called his secretary and maybe couldn't get information about where he was. And so then she called friends of theirs trying to figure out where Andy was. I guess that's the gist of it. But, lady, give up. Okay, you drove him away. But you don't want to admit that this was your fault. And since you have no ability to look in on yourself, you're going to now try to say that you'd been this model wife and that you'd nursed him back to health during his cancer. Girl, you gave him cancer. What are you talking about? Nursed him back to health? Nothing. She was so busy with herself all the time. I can't even believe she remembers he had cancer. Another time, Andy attended a meeting with Martha at the office of her attorney. After a difficult and stressful couple of hours of hassling over financial issues, Martha said to Andy, well, you haven't even asked about Max. Oh. This story's crazy. Okay, you haven't even asked about Max. Max was his favorite of the Stewart's two chows. A week or so earlier, Martha had mentioned in passing to Andy on the phone that the dog had been hit by a car, but was okay. But when Andy now inquired about the dog's health, Martha told him, well, he's dead. Okay, well, that's sudden, Martha, isn't it? You couldn't have told Andy this on the phone? The dog's been hit by a car, but he's going to be okay. It's the last thing you knew, and now he's dead. Andy was shocked speechless. Even Martha's lawyer was taken aback by the manner in which he blurted out the news. Good night, Martha, he said. You didn't have to tell him like that. Beside himself with grief, Andy ended the meeting and returned to New York. Sadly, he telephoned a Turkey Hill neighbor to ask why he hadn't called him about the dog's demise. What do you mean? Asked the uncomprehending friend. I saw Max this morning. He's fine. What? What? People's attachment to their dog is a very serious thing. She'd clearly set Andy up so that, one, she could be mad that he hadn't asked about Max, and then two, go in there and be like, oh, well, he's dead. So, you didn't even ask about the dog you say you loved, and by the way, he's dead. All lies. All lies. What is wrong with her? And what did she think was going to happen when he finds out that Max is indeed alive? I mean, how is this going to help her case? What a short-sighted lie. Like such an obvious manipulation. If you're trying to prove to this guy that he's made this massive mistake by dumping you, maybe don't lie and tell him that his favorite dog was hit by a car and is now dead. Maybe you're proving his point as to why he needed to get away from you. Turkey Hill, meanwhile, Kathy Tatlock witnessed firsthand Martha's often curious and sometimes frightening behavior and became concerned about her emotional and physical well-being. On a number of occasions, particularly after the hair-pulling incident, Tatlock recommended that Martha seek help to deal with her anguish, anger, and frustration, but she rejected the advice. Everyone in Martha's circle was concerned about her emotional well-being. Another friend, for example, gave Martha some marijuana, hoping it would help her relax, but it didn't. Martha was not sleeping at all, Tatlock noted. She had horrible insomnia. She sometimes would barge into my room in the middle of the night to confront me about one thing or another. That is when I would leave. Don't you dare barge into my room in the middle of the night to talk about your problems. We gotta get some sleep around here. I don't care if you want to stay up all night. I gotta get some rest. There is nothing in this world that's gonna make me flip out. Like someone barging into my room, turning on the light, and then wanting to sit down and just deride me because I didn't do one thing or another correctly, and they want to talk about it right now at 2 o'clock in the morning. What is the matter with you, Martha? Why are you up in the middle of the night? Which spirits are you communing with right now? Because I'm trying to go to sleep. Okay, so you can go over there and have your witching hour with somebody else, but right now I'm trying to go to bed. On one such occasion, a highly emotional Martha demanded that Tatlock attend a pre-dawn screening of decades-old photographic slides that she had found among Andy's possessions. What the hell, Martha? I was asleep. But you want to go look at some slides you found of Andy's? That sounds like a personal journey that I don't want to be on. I don't want to look at Andy's old slides. I don't care about Andy's old slides. She flipped the covers off of me and said, I have to show you something. She was frantic. She'd already set up the slide projector in her office, which was adjacent to my bedroom, and she wanted to show me slides of Andy as a teenager with his girlfriends at the time. What? What? How is this relevant to Kathy Tatlock? How is this relevant to anyone? I was dead asleep, Martha. I don't want to look at slides of Andy's girlfriends. I don't want to go down to Crazy Town with you. I said, Martha, why do you care about these? You didn't even know Andy then. But she was furious that he had kept these photographs all those years. I told her I felt she was being silly. That there were issues she had with Andy, but those pictures weren't among them. But she told me that I just didn't understand. You're damn right I don't understand. Why am I out of bed in the middle of the night to look at pictures of your ex-husband with some of his old girlfriends? You're right, I don't understand. And I never will, and I don't want to. By the end of the slideshow, she said that maybe she would make an album of the pictures for Andy. I said, oh, Martha, you are a very confused person. You start out by saying that you're going to destroy these things, and you end up by saying that you're going to make a photo album and present them to him? Why would you do a thing like that? Just give him back his damn slides. They have no interest to anybody but him. It's his past. But she said, no, I think I'll make an album. In the meantime, I'm going to hide these things. Don't you dare tell him that I have them. See, this is how confused she is. She wanted to make a presentation of all of these pictures of him back with his old girlfriends to basically be like, look what I found out about you. Like he cares. She's so confused, though, that she thinks this is a real find, that this is real revelation about who he is. That this, so she wants to present it to him in an album, not because she cares about giving his things back in a nice way, but because she wants to be like, there's nothing about you that you can hide from me. I see who you really are. Okay, who cares? Who cares? Like, it's not going to make the point she thinks it's going to make. She thinks this is going to be a real gut punch for Andy when he finds out that she saw all the pictures of him and his girlfriends. Real gut punch for Andy. Let me tell you, this guy's hanging on by a thread. What is this that he's going to care about this? But Tatlock's time of terror is not over. Listen to this. This is so crazy. When Tatlock first moved into the compound to direct and produce the Secrets video project, Martha treated her royally, installing her in the small, sunny, modern suite that Lexi had used when she was home from boarding school. The bedroom contained a lovely 4-poster bed that had belonged to Andy, and there was a small, fully equipped kitchen and bathroom. The lower level, once the garage, was now being used as Martha's TV kitchen, where Tatlock was directing the cooking sequences for the videos. Initially, Martha was a gracious hostess and gave Tatlock every amenity: a pile of crisp white iron sheets, a half-dozen fluffy down pillows, and a comforter for her bed. Every day, the room had fresh flowers from the garden that Martha personally cut, In the bathroom, there was an enormous wicker basket overflowing with soft towels of every size in Martha's favorite color, white. Tatlock was given an open invitation to anything in the enormous restaurant refrigerators downstairs. The champagne, wine from Sterling Vineyards, one of the sponsors of the Secret Series, and the mouth-watering leftovers from Martha's various cooking projects. Sometimes she'd cook for me herself, Tatlock pointed out. She took good care of me. The treatment was exceptional, and it made me feel very special and very wanted. Martha introduced Tatlock to everyone, including Kmart executives. "This is my director," she'd say. "She's brilliant and very creative." Okay, but it's all just love bombing, okay? Big shocker there. Because when Tatlock went home during a break in the production, the good life at Turkey Hill changed, and Martha suddenly turned against her. While Tatlock was away, Andy returned to the house and reclaimed some of his personal possessions, including the bed that Tatlock had been sleeping on. That was one of the landmarks in the separation, in Tatlock's view. The point when Martha fully realized that Andy was making a new life for himself, that he was never coming back, and that he had even taken his bed. Martha was furious, and Tatlock, because of her proximity, became a target of her rage. At first, Tatlock said, I was allowed to leave the new sofa bed open. But then she told me she needed to have the bed closed during the day. I was required to take all of my notebooks, papers, reference materials, and supplies of one kind or another, and put them away every morning so that there was almost no evidence of a human being living in that place. I had to unmake my bed every morning and make it up again every night. This is where she's staying. Like, this little suite is where she stays. She could close the door, and then Martha never has to know if the bed is still open. And it's not like she was leaving it in some kind of disarray. You know, she was just going to make the bed. This is where she sleeps now. Can you imagine the annoyance of having to get the sheets out and get the pillows out and get the blankets out every single night and remake the bed? By all means, make the bed when you get up, but, like, can we leave it made? Like, what is the problem here? And does Martha want her to do work or not? To put away all the things on her desk every day and, like, make it look like nobody lives there? Who else is going to be in there but the person who's staying in there? That is crazy town. But it gets so much weirder and so much worse, and just, it's, especially because she made such an effort to show Kathy Tatlock that she was welcome and wanted and needed. Now the way she's treating her is just shocking. Listen to this. That was the beginning of control, a power play. Gradually, all the services to me stopped. She told me very tersely one day that I'd have to clean out the little refrigerator that was in the apartment. She said, "It's stupid for me to be paying the electrical bill for just you." I had to empty and unplug the refrigerator. She also made the kitchen downstairs off limits to me, so I had to go to the Chinese takeout place to get my meal for the evening. You literally live with Martha Stewart. She's cooking all day long, but you can't have any leftovers. Go get some Chinese takeout. What? She painted the bathroom sill and left the window stuck open. It started to get cold, and I told her on one visit that I couldn't put the window down because I was afraid that I'd chip the paint if I forced it. She said she'd look into it right away, but never did. She also told me that I could not turn on the heat, and I was freezing to death. Because it was so cold, I started to stuff towels in the open window, but when I'd come back to my room at the end of the day, the towels would be gone and the window would still be open, and she'd say, "Oh, you're tougher than that." You guys, I'm speechless. I'm speechless. She paints the window open. Would have a freak-out session if the paint was chipped. You can't close the window, and she says, "You're not allowed to turn on the heat. You're tougher than that." And that when the poor woman is trying to heat the place by stuffing the window with towels so that it's not freezing cold in a Connecticut winter, she finds that the towels have been removed. I mean, it's so calculated to make her uncomfortable. And then she wonders, why is Andy not here anymore? Where did Andy go? Why is Andy not willing to be here with me? Because if this is the kind of stuff she's going to be doing to Kathy after just a couple of months being there, what was she doing to Andy after years and years and years? Like, the psychological manipulation is off the charts. Martha Stewart is indeed a study, just like Jana Horowitz said, but like a study of, like, are you demonically possessed? Like, what is the matter with you? Why are you so evil? Tatlock goes on to say that Martha even eliminated the bath mat. She left me with one washcloth and a small towel. I had to step on the cold tile floor in my bare feet, or else stand on my washcloth after getting out of the bath. Whenever I would say, "Martha, what's going on?" she'd say, "Nothing. Whatever do you mean?" Because Tatlock was so heavily invested in the ongoing video project and because of their long, close friendship, I knew she was hurting. She continued to endure Martha's treatment. I was forced to get up at 5 a.m. several times a week because she wanted me to exercise with her. She said, "It'll be good for you, and it'll be fun for me because I'm so depressed." Because she was an insomniac and because she also had a crazy schedule, she would have the trainer come at 5:30 a.m. I'd get up and open the gate for the trainer and get the water and prepare the barn, which she was using as a gym. The trainer would come, but sometimes Martha wouldn't appear. Sometimes the trainer wouldn't come because Martha had canceled the appointment, but she didn't tell me. And I'd be waiting there at 5:30 in the morning. Martha never apologized and would say, "I'm sure I told you she wasn't coming. I guess you just didn't remember." I'd even get up and exercise with her mother when Martha was away on vacation. Martha would say, "Please, please, I'm paying for all this. Would you just go exercise with her? It'll be good for her." Later, I got a bill from Martha's office for all my exercise classes. The whole thing was like a sick joke. You'd think an evil witch was at work. Like, seriously, no exaggeration? Seriously. What's Martha dabbling in? I mean, this is not the workings of a normal person. This isn't the workings of a hurt person. This isn't somebody who's having a really hard time because they're getting divorced and it just wasn't the way they saw their life going. Something is afoot with Martha. This manipulation is just so calculated, so strange, so weirdly specific and driving someone crazy. I just can't imagine that somebody who's just like firing on all cylinders mentally, emotionally, and spiritually could act like this. Now, obviously, we know she's not firing on all cylinders mentally, emotionally, but spiritually, what's happening here? Like, why are you so intent on hurting people? What is the matter with you, you evil witch? Okay, next chapter. Oh, this chapter is called Hell Hath No Fury. So what are we into? What's going on, friends? How long is this? I think we can manage it if I don't make too many comments. All right. In March 1988, Andy filed for divorce in Bridgeport Superior Court, claiming that his marriage to Martha Costira Stewart had irretrievably broken down, and he requested that the court grant equitable distribution of property. Under Connecticut law at the time, a sheriff was required to serve complaints, summonses, and subpoenas on the defendants in divorce cases. But whenever the sheriff arrived at Turkey Hill with pertinent papers, Martha did her best to duck him. Andy knew it would be difficult and unpleasant, but he thought the divorce would be resolved in 6 months by settlement, said a confidant later. Well, talk about hope springing eternal. Andy, do you know who you're dealing with? Who have you been living with all these years? Why would you think that this marriage, this hellhole of a life, would suddenly be resolved in 6 months with this insane person? He should have realized that this was going to be a years and years and years long fight. Anyway, whenever the sheriff set foot on the property to serve her, Martha was hell on wheels. She would just make it very unpleasant for him. They attempted to make service a number of times and were unable to, even though she was there. Martha fought Andy tooth and nail. What he thought would take 6 months to settle went on for years. Martha's position was that since Andy had left the house, everything belonged to her. According to what laws, Martha? When Martha finally accepted service of the divorce complaint, she immediately filed a motion, which was granted by the court, that put a seal on all hearings and records in the case of Andrew Stewart versus Martha Stewart. Defendant requests that as a Kmart spokesperson and prominent food consultant, records be closed, Martha's motion said. National media exposure of the above records could be detrimental to the defendant's reputation and occupation, as well as the interests of parties not involved in this action, such as Kmart. As a side note, when she was trying to get her magazine off the ground with Time Warner, somehow they managed to get all of her divorce records and did not like what they found. And I want to know, how is that possible? If the divorce records are sealed, then how did Time Warner get a hold of them? I mean, it was one of the reasons why they almost didn't do it with her, because they were like, we don't like you as a person, and your divorce is disgusting, and you are disgusting in it. But anyway, that's just, I don't know. Any lawyers watching? How does that happen? How do you seal something, but then other people can get that information if they really want it? I don't understand how that works, but whatever. By the time he filed for divorce, Andy had fallen in love with Robin Whitney Fairclough, who was 2 decades his junior. Fairclough, daughter of a J.C. Penney executive and a school teacher, had grown up in the affluent Westchester County community of Briarcliff. In Robin's senior year of high school, the Faircloughs moved to Westport. Fairclough eventually went west to study art at the University of California at Santa Cruz and returned to Westport after graduation to pursue a career as a painter. In the mid-'80s, she joined the horde of young women working in Martha's catering operation. When the Stewarts were away, Fairclough often house sat, taking care of the pets, feeding the chickens, and running errands. Because she was frequently around, sometimes even living in one of the spare rooms outside the main house, she and Lexi, close in age, became friends. In time, Martha herself grew fond of Fairclough, respecting her artistic abilities and creativity, and began utilizing her talents. Robin became Martha's regular consultant on flower arranging and styling and was acknowledged for her work in the weddings book. When the New York Times did a feature story on Martha's Kmart deal in late August 1987, several months after Andy had left, a beaming Martha and a smiling Robin were photographed looking chummy in the Turkey Hill kitchen. What Robin found weird was that Martha would always say, "You and Andy would be just perfect together," Claire McCulley said. Martha used to push them together, laughing about it in her way, which was more of a put-down of the two of them. It was sadistic. She really didn't mean it, and it was a warped thing to say. But their relationship did not happen until after Andy left Martha. After the Stewarts' breakup, published reports suggested that Andy had actually run off with Fairclough, but that was not the case. In fact, Robin continued to work on and off for Martha for months after Andy's departure. In one instance, Robin sought Martha's advice on a flower arranging book idea and gave the proposal to Martha to read. Robin also did the flower arranging for a big Christmas party that Martha threw in December 1987, 8 months after Andy had left. However, once Martha learned that Andy and Robin were together, she refused to pay Fairclough the $500 she owed her for the party, and Fairclough was forced to sue Martha in small claims court in Norwalk in 1988. Martha eventually paid Fairclough a portion of the money due her, but Martha never returned Fairclough's book proposal. Martha began alleging to certain friends that Andy and Robin had been having an affair while Andy was still living at Turkey Hill, an accusation that Andy vehemently denied. Martha claimed she had evidence. She said she discovered Fairclough's sweater in Andy's car, which she felt buttressed her suspicions. Andy contended Martha fabricated the story. He asserted that nothing of a romantic nature occurred between Robin and him until almost a year after he left Martha. Also, if this girl is working for you like all the time, and she's, feeding the chickens and staying in the house and, running errands for you guys while you're away, is it not conceivable that maybe she left her sweater in one of your cars? I mean, that is this is not hard evidence, Martha. You're going to have to do better than that. The girl literally lived on your property. So to find articles of clothing in a car and she's running errands for you guys, sorry, no. You'd have to be like, I walked in on them. Or I had all these people telling me that they were having an affair. You're going to need some corroborating evidence here. A sweater in a car is not it. I learned about Robin from Martha, Kathy Tatlock stated. She told me about the sweater and felt that had tipped Andy's hand. She said Andy was a liar and a cheat, and that Robin had betrayed her friendship and generosity, and also had betrayed Lexi, who was Robin's friend. In a counterclaim to Andy's divorce action, Martha charged that her husband has, on repeated occasions and continues to, commit adultery. Plaintiff willfully deserted defendant more than 1 year prior to date of this answer, with total neglect of his duty to the defendant. Whatever the truth, when Martha discovered that Andy and Fairclough were an item, her rage intensified. At 4:30 on the afternoon of March 16, 1988, Martha stormed into Andy's office at 740 Broadway in Manhattan and, quote, created a scene and disturbed the conduct of the plaintiff's business by, among other things, ripping up the complaint she was served with and refused to leave when so requested by plaintiff, according to a motion to restrain filed by Andy. It goes on to say that the defendant threatened to break a window in the plaintiff's office, which is located on the 11th floor of an office building. This was the second time in the last 3 months that the defendant had engaged in such conduct. The plaintiff requests that the defendant be restrained from entering upon the plaintiff's personal residence at 25 West 76th Street or office unless by written consent. According to the Stewart friends and former employees familiar with the incident, Martha burst into Andy's quiet offices, screaming at him and threatening him. She was so angry and outraged, said an observer. She threatened to throw things out the window, or rather through the window. She was ranting and raving, and Andy was going crazy trying to stop her, trying to calm her down, trying to get her out of there before someone got hurt. She picked up stuff from his desk and went to the window and held it back in her hand as if she were going to throw it through the window. She was threatening him with, if you don't do this or that, I'll throw your shit out the window. She was just having a temper tantrum like a 5-year-old. But it was scary. At one point, Martha actually reached across to Andy's desk and slapped him in the face. Andy, it's time to call in security. I hope he did. That is insane. It's like, Martha, why are you proving his point so adequately for him? Why are you making it so clear, not only to him, but to anybody in the vicinity, that you are an insane person and that the only thing for it is to leave you? Meanwhile, Martha filed a motion with the court that requested that Andy cease harassment, telephone calls, and insults. She further charged that Andy has taken girlfriend on vacations and holidays and physically abused the defendant. Andy denied all of Martha's allegations. On March 21st, 1988, Martha and Andy signed a stipulation that said, neither party is to go to the other's business or home. Neither party shall harass or abuse the other party. The judge hoped that the order would put a halt to their angry bickering. He did a lot of strange things which are very hard to forget, Martha claimed. He was a weak man during this time, very weak. He didn't want me to talk to him. He had to make a clean break. It was a very childish, weak thing to do. No, it's called boundaries, you nightmare. It's called boundaries. It's called we're in a court case against each other. We can't just be having like chummy times. And if we could, we wouldn't be divorced now. What in the world? It was a very childish, weak thing of him to do. Martha, finally this is the first time in your marriage that he actually isn't weak. And that's the irony of this whole thing, is that Martha is going to try to hurt him by calling him weak at this point, when for the first time he's standing up like a man, having some courage, and just getting out of this. And this is the time when she wants to call him weak. That's exactly what these sorts of people do, too. They twist what you're doing. They call it the exact opposite of what you're actually doing. I mean, this is like, I hate the word gaslighting because it is used a lot, but I mean, Martha is a queen at it. All right, well, despite the court-ordered attempt to keep Martha and Andy apart, he subsequently alleged that she had violated its terms and, in a motion for contempt, claimed that she had gone to his residence without invitation and refused to leave. On July 20th, 1988, in a motion to cease harassment, which the court granted, Andy alleged that Martha physically grabbed him and screamed at him in public, sent letters to individuals known to the plaintiff in which she had made derogatory remarks, and has made numerous telephone calls to plaintiff vilifying him. 5 years later, in a Martha Stewart Living Remembering column, aptly titled Writing Letters, Martha noted that there was a tradition of letter writing in the Costera family that had been encouraged by Martha Sr. For the first time, Martha mentioned her divorce to her magazine readers and described a curious one-way correspondence she had with Andy. During my separation and divorce from my husband, I wrote many, many letters to him and kept copies of all of them. I did this not from a sense of morbidness, but from a sense that in years to come I might understand better how we both felt and thought during that terrible time, when understanding was elusive and for me almost impossible. Friends of the Stewarts who either saw the letters or were told about them by Andy described them as mostly terrifying, not very nice, and very upsetting. One friend said a number of times Martha wrote, "This is the last letter I will ever send to you," but they just kept coming. Andy and Robin had already fastened their seatbelts aboard the Alitalia flight bound from Kennedy Airport for Rome, where Andy had business to conduct, when suddenly he was paged by a stewardess. Only Andy's secretary was aware of his itinerary, and she would have paged him only in case of extreme emergency. Andy nervously strode in front of the plane, where he was told someone was at the entrance to the ramp with a message for him. It was Martha, highly agitated, holding yet another letter in her hand. Terrifying. Andy told me that when he saw her standing there, his heart flew to his throat. He was so frightened, a friend recounted. He said, "What the hell are you doing here?" And she said she had a letter for him, the last letter she would ever write to him. But when she saw the look on Andy's face, she shoved the envelope through an opening in the ramp, and the letter fell to the tarmac. And then Martha turned and walked away. Andy said he never could figure out how Martha had found him, but she had an eerie way of popping up at various places. Bone-chilling. I'm frightened. I mean, that's kind of scary. Meanwhile, other strange and frightening incidents caused anxious moments for Andy and Robin Fairclough. Andy discovered that the engine oil in his car, which Fairclough had been using, had been drained after someone had unscrewed the stopper on the oil pan. And one evening, Robin walked out of her Westport art studio and just missed stepping into a huge pile of fresh dog dirt that someone had seemingly placed there. Getting into her car on another occasion, she was shocked to find that someone had used a knife or a key to scratch the paint. Robin's parents, who lived in Westport, began receiving disturbing telephone calls from a man, and then a letter arrived containing disgusting remarks about their daughter. Andy confronted Martha about the various incidents, but she denied any involvement. Frank Costera, who had gone through a nasty divorce himself, visited Martha around that time of the split to offer his moral support. He found Martha belligerent and unresponsive. She looked at me and said, "You're all happy that I'm going through a divorce. You are glad that I'm suffering. You all hate me because I'm the successful one." Frank says, I looked at her and my heart was just cut open. And I said, Martha, you're my sister. I love you. I don't feel that way. We're flesh and blood. I went to give her a hug to console her, and she pushed me away, turned around, and stomped off. He also said that Martha boasted to him at the time about having a confrontation with Fairclough. Martha said she was driving in her black Mercedes on Turkey Hill Road when she spotted Robin jogging. Martha told me she rolled down her window and said to Robin, Of all the streets in Westport, you have to jog in front of my house. If I catch you here again, I'll run you over. Friends, such as Claire McCulley, recalled that such incidents made Fairclough a nervous wreck. It was very disturbing for Robin. She felt that Martha was trying to make her life miserable. For a long time, Robin was afraid of Martha. She suspected Martha had keyed her car, and Robin felt that she was being stalked by Martha. Robin had a studio in Westport, and she said she thought she saw Martha sitting in her Suburban with the interior light on, staring up at her window. At one point, Robin had to get an unlisted telephone number because Martha was calling her at 2 and 3 in the morning. After a time, Robin felt that she had to close her Westport studio because she just couldn't take it anymore. As McCulley's husband George declared, if Andy had any doubts that he was doing the right thing by divorcing Martha, she certainly confirmed it in spades when he saw how she behaved. She destroyed any affection he could have for her, and there was a residue of affection there. That's the end of our readings today, my friends, but was that not a roller coaster? Was that not a roller coaster? Woman is crazy, if not straight up evil. I mean, there is a difference between crazy and evil. And I feel like she is dancing on that line pretty good. Stepping over a lot. And I understand being disappointed when things fall apart. It's really devastating when life doesn't go the way you want. But why are you proving this man's point? Right? Like, you're mad he left you, but you are really, really, really showing him that he made the right decision. And her attempt to be nice to him lasted all of like a hot second before she just decided to show her fangs. Extremely scary person. And the book just continues on this same path. It's terrible. Now, you guys, I do want to tell you something that I discovered, which is disappointing. Obviously, because this book was written before the Martha Stewart prison scandal, I didn't expect this book to cover it. But then I realized that because this edition was older than some other editions, maybe I just needed to buy the latest edition. And as I was looking, I found this book. It was a paperback cover, same book, Just Desserts, but it said on the front of it, updated with the latest scandals, and it was published in the 2000s. And I was like, oh, well, I bought the wrong book. I should have gotten this edition. So then I bought it, and it came in yesterday. Oh, literally the same exact book. There's no new chapters at all. You know what's new about it? It has a couple of pictures in the middle of the book that are pictures of her, like, going to court, and pictures of her, looking disheveled and sad, and, pictures of her with captions that were not written by Jerry Oppenheimer. The captions are so tabloidy and like, oh my, what have we here? Is that Martha Stewart on her way to court? Like, super weird. I was highly disappointed. So same book, but clearly just a republishing of the book at the time of the court cases. And then the updated info of new scandals was just a couple of photographs thrown in. So sadly, we're not going to get the Jerry Oppenheimer take on the prison scandal. But it almost doesn't matter, because we were all very aware of what was going on with the prison scandal. The stuff we didn't know is the stuff we're reading about now. And it's insane. And it doesn't stop being insane. This blows that Ethel book out of the water. I didn't think we could scale heights like we had scaled with the Ethel book. I was like, well, everything's going to be kind of a downhill from here. I mean, I know we'll hear a couple of interesting stories from time to time, but no biography will be that good. I mean, this one just leaves Ethel in the dust, does it not? Anyway, thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for indulging my interest in these little topics. And I hope you guys will hang out with me for the rest of the week while we keep going on with Martha. All right, I'll see you guys then. Bye.